Hello and welcome to the Briefing Room. I'm Bill Freilich from WTCM Radio. This is our weekly roundup of some of the things happening and making headlines here in northern Michigan, and we're talking with journalists that cover those stories. And this week, another sports edition of the Briefing Room. And with me at the non-table is Mike Misico from ESPN Radio. Good to have you back, Mike.
How's it going, my friend?
Nice to see you. And James Cook from the Traverse City Record Eagle. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Good to have you guys here. We're going without a table, shaking things up a little bit.
Yeah, what's up with this?
Showing how casual we are in the sports world.
I'm just going to imagine that there's a table here.
That's right. We can just roll with anything that comes our way. Kind of like the Lions have this season.
Hey, good segue, my friend.
Man, what is going on? I mean, we were off to a terrible start, and now the pundits are talking playoffs. It just seems a little hard to believe. So give me your take on what's going on with Detroit this year, Michael.
So you're saying there's still a playoff chance, my friends. In fact, there is. The Lions are winners of 3 straight. In fact, they'll be going for the 4th straight tonight. Time of we tape this show, Thursday Night Football. I don't know if that's any kind of spoiler alert or not, but they'll be going for 4 straight. But over this 3-game stretch, they've been playing lights out. They beat the likes of the Packers, and they picked up some good victories along the way. They're playing like they should be playing, and it's a defense it's been a defense-oriented. Their defense have gotten them to this point, in my opinion. I think they've only given up, 55 rush yards per game. I mean, this defense has been playing lights out. Stafford, they've limited his turnovers. They've corrected some of the fumbling issues, and I believe this all starts from Martha Ford cleaning house up at the top and rattling some cages finally.
So you're giving Martha Ford credit?
I'm giving her credit, believe it or not. And she rattled some cages and got players and coaching staff and even some higher ups thinking, we're not safe anymore. The Fords are actually going to step up and do something. And the Lions are playing like they should be right now. 3 straight, they're going for 4 straight. A win against Green Bay puts them right back in a playoff mix in an NFC that's not very tough. And they're playing very well right now.
Well, I want to dissect everything that you just said, but I think first go to James with your take on Detroit so far.
Yeah, I think the big shakeup, definitely had something to do with it. I mean, anytime you have a big shakeup like that at the top, I mean, you fire your president, your general manager, your offensive coordinator, some other coaches. It makes everybody kind of look at their own job and kind of reassess, sure, and move on from there. And I think you've seen an improvement from almost every unit of the team in the last 3 weeks since then. So the talent was there. It just maybe wasn't being utilized correctly or brought out, whatever. But the last 3 weeks, they've just been playing great. I mean, the defense, like Mike said, has been awesome. It kind of coincides a little bit with Haloti Ngata kind of returning to form, but you can't argue the results. Sure. Matthew Stafford's also played a lot better the last 3 weeks. They've kind of let him go back to the old Matthew Stafford and take a few chances and go downfield a little bit more now, whereas everything under Joe Lombardi was just dink and dunk. How many times did you see the Lions throw a ball more than 10 yards under Lombardi? Hardly ever. And I don't know if he was just worried that the offensive line couldn't handle that or whatever, but this is the same offensive line, and sure, they're doing it.
Well, let me start at the top with the decisions to get rid of president, GM, defensive coordinator, or offensive coordinator, which is it?
Mm-hmm.
Offensive coordinator. Whether you think those, I mean, obviously things have turned around. Those are the right decisions. If you were surprised that Jim Caldwell is still here, frankly, I was surprised that of all the changes, we didn't get rid of the head coach, too.
I'm very surprised Caldwell kept his job, and I think quite honestly, Caldwell's still coaching for his life. But I think the last few weeks, he may have secured himself another year, maybe 2. We'll see. I think that it was a way to, like we said, shake things up and kind of reinvigorate an organization from top to bottom that's just been stagnant and accustomed to losing. And we fell back into that mold after another playoff appearance last year. And just to show that, hey, we're not, with the Ford saying we're not okay with things being how they've been anymore, right, and heads are rolling, that shook it up, and I think enough to jar some things loose and head things in the right direction. I personally am not a fan of Caldwell. I don't think he's the right fit there. And I'm not going to say everything that's going right is because of Jim Caldwell. I love the move at offensive coordinator. I think Jim Bob Cooter, with the best name in the NFL, maybe pro sports, he's done a tremendous job at the offensive coordinator position the last few weeks, being very creative offensively. The Lions are such a one-dimensional team. There's no running game whatsoever, period. I think they're dead last, or tied for dead last with a rushing offense. He's been very creative with the ways we're getting that ball downfield and utilizing their weapons. He needs to continue to be creative if they're going to keep winning, but so far so good. It's working. You know, they're going to pass. Defenses know what we're going to do when we take the field. He's finding different ways to get that done, and it's working.
Thoughts on the front office or Jim Caldwell?
Well, I think keeping Caldwell. I think part of the reason why they kept Caldwell is the one of the reasons they brought him in the first place is because he's the polar opposite of Jim Schwartz, whereas Schwartz was this high energy, kind of egomaniacal guy, almost a little bit, and everything. And Caldwell is this low key, downplayed, kind of calming influence. And I think during that time of huge upheaval in the team, I think that was good to have that at the top for the players. So, you know, whether they keep him long term, I don't know, but it probably for the short term at least, I think that keeping him was a good move. The move from Lombardi to Jim Bob Cooter has been great the last 3 weeks. Like you said, the offense has just improved. They still can't run the ball consistently, but every now and then they'll bust one. And, you know, he is being creative and taking shots downfield. I think that's the biggest thing. The other teams just knew exactly what was coming from Joe Lombardi, and several players even came out and said that players from the other team were telling them, we know exactly what play is coming here, and we know what route you're running, and all this stuff. So it was incredibly predictable, and at least now the Lions' offense isn't predictable because they're going to take some shots downfield in addition to just the dink and dunk stuff. So
obviously we can't dispute the 3 straight victories here, and I am biased with my loyalty to the Green Bay Packers here, but I can't help but think that even with 3 straight wins, the Lions did get a little bit of luck on their side. Packers didn't have their best game. Lions played very well, granted, but those 3 wins didn't come easy. They weren't, overly convincing, in my opinion. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
the Eagles one was pretty convincing.
The Eagles one, yes, I'll give you that one. I'll give you that one for sure.
But all 3 those teams, none of them are pushovers. I mean, the Packers are obviously a very good team still, even though they've struggled a little bit lately. And Philadelphia and Oakland are both teams that are still in the playoff hunt. So neither one of those was an easy game. So to just pull out those wins was big.
Sure.
They held, in the first meeting at Lambeau, the Packers to 47 rush yards, and that was a key to that win. The Packers were essentially, and they forced Aaron Rodgers to throw the ball 61 times, I think it was, and they were also able to defensively pressure Rodgers. Now, is it Lacey the Packers have back now as their running back? He's put together back-to-back 100-yard games. So going into Thursday night's game, it's going to be a different story for the Packers. They're rushing the ball much better, so they're not as one-dimensional. I think that Detroit still needs to pressure Aaron Rodgers still, and it's a much different team than they faced in Week 10 at Lambeau Field. But I think it's again a different team we're seeing out of Detroit, and prediction sure to go wrong. I'm telling you right now, even though who knows when people are going to be watching this, I'm telling you right now, 4 straight wins, Detroit beats Green Bay, and I wrote it down.
So we have it in writing.
Lions win 27-23.
I will be stunned if that happens. Like I said, I'm biased, but what do you think tonight? I don't see how the Packers
I'll take
lose.
that.
I don't see how they lose 2 games in a season to the Lions.
Yeah.
First time since 1991, Lions would have swept Green Bay.
First time since '91 that they beat them in Lambeau. The last time they beat the Lions in Lambeau, Brett Favre was still playing with the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Hey, the Packers lost to Chicago last week, or on Thanksgiving. That was a shocker as well. So anything is possible.
That's very true. Mm-hmm. Well, the other element obviously is the strength of schedule for the Lions, and from all accounts, after Thursday night against the Packers, it seems to get easier for Detroit, which only adds to the talk about the potential for playoffs.
Absolutely, their chances. I'm telling you, if they get past Green Bay and they get this 5th win, they're right back in the mix. And Minnesota's playing very well. And don't take anything away from Minnesota, but again, I think overall the big picture, the NFC, in my opinion, is not that strong this year. So with the remaining schedule for the Detroit Lions, if they keep playing on a level like they're playing, if you get a few more victories under your belt, you're very much in that playoff hunt.
Mm-hmm. I think as of right now, the Lions' chances of statistically of making the playoffs are about 1.5%.
Yes,
is what they've figured out.
1.7.
But if they win Thursday night, obviously those are going to go up. What they need to do is they need to pretty much win out. You can maybe lose one game and get in at 8-8 in a weak NFC. And Lions fans need to root against the Packers and for the Vikings. They need the Vikings to run away with the division and the Lions to get in as a wild card. And they need to root for every AFC team that plays an NFC team, basically.
Right.
So you're saying there's a chance.
There's a chance. There's a Dumb and Dumber chance.
You mentioned Brett Favre a minute ago, and obviously I love the story here, but we finally talk about his long-awaited jersey retirement this past week, so that's topical as well.
That was great. Got to watch that on television. It was a special moment. I've been a Brett Favre fan. Well, let me just say this. Despised him when he played against Detroit for all those years with Green Bay. But still, as a player, tremendous. It was unfortunate how things ended there. I was very surprised it took this long for him to get his due, get his jersey retired at Lambeau. It was a very special moment to see that. It was great to see the fans recognize Brett Favre for all the years he gave them. A phenomenal career overall for Brett Favre. And a very emotional moment there to see Bart Starr out and see them embrace. What a great moment in sports that was, to see that at midfield at Lambeau.
That was pretty cool. I was a little disappointed Brett didn't run out of the tunnel. It was more of a very slow saunter.
He should have suited up and played.
Well, when Aaron Rodgers went down, I kept waiting. Somebody's got to say, we got to make the call to Brett.
I heard he was joking with some people in the stadium about, give me 5 minutes to warm up. But he told somebody else, he's like, I could still throw the ball and everything. I just couldn't take the hits anymore, as far as playing in the NFL, if somebody asked him to make a comeback. But I wish Brett Summers would have been here because he was actually at that game.
Really?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
He was there in the crowd for that game, but he wasn't feeling too well today, so wasn't able to join us. But
all right, we'll have to ask him about it next time we have him in.
Yeah,
that's cool. While we transition, I guess, a little bit away from the Lions, so we can touch real quickly on high school football as that season has come to a close. And again, very briefly is fine, but give us your thoughts on our Northern Michigan teams and their run this year.
We had it was another successful season for Northern Michigan football, I think, for high school teams. Again, we're on the map, and programs continue to grow and get stronger. And St. Ignace, we know the tragedy that happened up there with Mitchell Snyder. St. Ignace made a strong push to get back to Ford Field. They came very close again. A great story there out of St. Ignace and how far they were able to go. Traverse City St. Francis, with their former coach coming back and going as far as they did. Great story there. Traverse City Central, with their new coach, Coach Sugars, taking the helm. He's been there for a long time as assistant, but taking over his first season as head coach, marching the Trojans to a tremendous regular season and into the postseason. So many great storylines. Unfortunately, none of us our teams got to Ford Field, but still, all in all, a great season for high school football in Northern Michigan.
Yeah, some of those scores from Central and St. Francis games, these blowouts, some remarkable numbers this season.
Yeah, Central's offense was was great this year. Sugars came in and kind of shook things up a little bit, but not completely. But they just seemed to really take off under his leadership. They had a pretty good team coming back as well. But it takes some leadership to guide that ship. And their defense was good as well. St. Francis, they had Josh Sellers coming back, but they also had the difficulty of being bumped up to Division 6.
Yeah.
From 7 to 6 and playing in a larger division. They were like the smallest school pretty much in Division 6. And then they had to play the Division 6 powerhouse, Ithaca, who's only lost one game in the last 6 or 7 years. Mm-hmm. So that was a pretty monumental challenge. And they gave them a pretty good run.
Yeah. Thoughts for next year? I mean, are we losing lots of seniors in some of our schools here? And we're obviously not going to see the same teams on the field come next fall?
Yeah, you're going to lose a lot. Actually, I think TC Central returns a pretty decent core of that team. And I think they'll be pretty good next year. I wouldn't be surprised if Wes is pretty good. I mean, Carson Rosa is probably the best throwing quarterback I've seen in a couple years here. Kid's like 6'3", 6'4", and can just chuck it. They get him some wide receivers to throw to. They could be pretty dangerous on offense there.
I think we'll see a lot of the teams that maybe slipped up a little bit this year, like Traverse City West. Obviously, Central's going to be back. Traverse City West, there's other teams that were on the bubble on the outside. Pine River, who came close. Teams like Elk Rapids, who forfeited games and really struggled, but had such a young nucleus and cores that were very talented, but just couldn't put it together. You'll see them return to form. I think now I'm already looking forward to next year. It's going to be exciting once again.
All right, well, let's talk hardwood. Let's talk about the Pistons and the basketball season. And a couple weeks ago, I was all of a sudden feeling very old that we were talking about retiring Chauncey Billups' jersey. What is the world coming to? But give me your take on the Pistons this year, guys. James?
They've been a pleasant surprise. I mean, Stan Van Gundy's got him running his offense. He's got the traded for the pieces and acquired the pieces that he wants to put his offense in place, and it's worked wonders. I mean, taking Greg Monroe out of the equation has made Andre Drummond just a monumental force down in the middle. I mean, he's got 10 double-doubles this season already. The next highest player, I think, in the NBA has 4 or something like that.
Wow.
So he's just dominating down low. You got Reggie Jackson is explosive at the point guard, and then you've got a bunch of other players that are contributing in all the other positions too. Ilyasova's been a good pickup at power forward. Morris, Caldwell Pope has really improved this season. And then once they get some of their other guys back, Brandon Jennings and the other swingman that got injured, broke his foot in the preseason. Once they get those 2 guys back, they could really take off. Jennings, we'll see if he accepts the role of being a backup. I don't know how well that'll go over, but if nothing else, he'll be a good trade piece because he's got an expiring contract, and you can get a decent draft pick or a usable player back for him.
Yeah, there's talk of Jennings going on use as trade bait, which I'm okay with, even though he's a nice player to have. I don't think he'd accept a backup role, to be honest.
Yeah, but he's not going to start over Brett Jackson either.
Detroit, I think they lost 40-some games 4 years ago. The past 3 seasons, 50-plus losses. They've been god-awful since Dumars imploded the Billups era Pistons. And I got to be honest, and I make, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. After last season, I was calling Stan Van Gundy. I wanted Van Gundy. I didn't think it was going to work. I didn't think putting a guy in that role and as head coach and as president and all that wasn't, I wasn't buying it. This year, I'm buying it. I'm buying into it with Drummond, with Jennings, with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, with Andre Drummond, absolute beast. This is a strong nucleus of a team, and they are legitimate contenders, I think, to Cleveland in this Central Division. They're only 3.5 games back at the time of this taping. They're right there in the mix. Now, I think there's only about 500 more games to go in the NBA season this year, but They're legitimate threats. They're not a joke anymore. Yeah. The Pistons are the real deal, and look out for these guys. They're going to be good in the next few years to come.
We'll take it. We'll take it. All right, hockey, Red Wings. What's happening out on the ice this year?
Struggles.
And what's not happening on the ice?
Yeah, they're kind of struggling. They're just, I don't know, they seem to just kind of fall apart in the third period of every game, it seems like. They'll go into the third period leading 3-2 or 2-1 and just cough up the lead. The good thing that you can draw from these things is that their young players are playing well. Right. They're getting to play. I mean, Dylan Larkin is having a really good season for a rookie. I wouldn't be surprised if he wins Rookie of the Year, especially with the kid from Edmonton hurt. But you know, I mean, that only goes so far when you're saying that the good part of your season is you get to play your young kids.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, you know, they're second behind Montreal in the Atlantic Division right now. I don't think it's all doom and gloom. Yeah, they're coming up short down the stretch late in games, giving up late goals that are sending them into extra frames. It seems like almost every game. Mrazek's playing well. I think he's got a 2.3% goals against average. Not too bad. He splits time, I think, still with Jimmy Howard, who's not playing too bad. It's still good to see. It's good to see Mrazek and Howard playing decent. That's okay. Mrazek, as you mentioned, Dylan Larkin, the future, 10 goals leading the team right now. This kid is phenomenal. Lock this kid up forever. Hopefully he's here forever. Justin Abelkader stepping up finally. It's good to see him getting going. Zetterberg playing better. You know, I can at least say this. I think the streak of playoff appearances is not in jeopardy. I think we'll
true. Yeah,
we'll
and I wouldn't be surprised if things kind of click for them. You know, you've got Datsuk back now. He's been back for a little while, and so you get him, you know, into that lineup, and I wouldn't be surprised if things start clicking and that they could make a little bit of run, a little bit of noise.
So as we sit here, guys, first week of December, we're talking about pretty decent odds for the Lions, the Pistons, and the Wings to have pretty decent seasons.
Go figure. I think that's a first.
If I would have said that to you in week 4 of the NFL season,
I would have fallen out of my chair.
Not so easy to believe back then.
No.
What are we paying attention to in the off season for baseball? Anything? I mean, I know we had the big change with GM with Avila, and obviously Dad letting son walk out the door. That was a little bit of an interesting
talk about
off-season headlines. But
awkward holiday dinner time.
Yeah.
Hello. But don't cry for Avila. I'm sure his millions of dollars in his new contract will help put him to sleep at night.
Yeah, and they're going to see him a lot.
Right.
Being that he's playing for the White Sox now.
Yeah.
You're going to see him, 15, 16 times a year, I think. Yeah, so that'll be awkward. Some of the other moves that they made in the offseason, though, Jordan Zimmerman, I think, is a nice addition. They got him for about half as much money as what David Price is supposedly getting from the Red Sox.
Right.
And Zimmerman is way more than half as good than David Price. He's just an innings eater, and that's what they needed in that rotation. They needed somebody you can just rely on 190, 200 innings every year and solid innings. So they got a nice signing there. They added a closer in Rodriguez. You kind of like, okay, is this Nathan all over again? Joe Nathan all over again? An aging closer at the end of possibly at the end of his career and everything like that. But K-Rod's been pretty good the last couple of years in Milwaukee, so we'll see. I think I got Cameron Maben back in the outfield, so see how that goes.
Yeah, Zimmerman from the Nationals. I'm all right with that. It seems like maybe is this guy, facing the end pretty soon. What is he, 29? I don't know. He's probably got some life on the some shelf life left. 5 years, 110 mil, I think was his deal. Not too shabby. And he's the all-time leader, and I think strikeouts, innings pitched for Washington. We don't really know what his postseason track record is because it's Washington. So We'll see what he can do. But that's good. We really need help in that pitching rotation. I think he can provide that. Tigers just recently released Feliz Naftali, and which good riddance. Even though it's nearing Christmas, Feliz Navidad to him.
And Albuquerque.
And Albuquerque. Should have made a left at Albuquerque. Albuquerque wasn't too bad. I don't know what the inner workings of that was. He was decent in my opinion.
Yeah.
But But the good news is, and I did a little research, there's still a ton, well, not a ton, but there's some decent free agent help out there available still that I think we'll see this offseason. The Tigers will get some more help. There's some stuff floating around. They're going to make some more moves. Illich recently came out. It's like a weekend at Bernie's scenario going for him. I'm pretty sure he's on strings and someone pretending to make him talk. He said money's not an option. He said it's about titles, period. He's going to shell out. He's going to open the books, pocketbook. We're going to see the Tigers make some moves this offseason.
Yeah. It's not the first offseason we've talked about pitching, though.
Yeah.
No, I know.
I wouldn't be surprised to see him bring Albuquerque back. They just didn't want to bring him back at the tender number.
Right. They just didn't tender him. So we'll see what happens unless someone else picks him up.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, guys, I hope we'll be back in just a couple months here and talking about some exciting postseason for all of our teams.
Feliz Navidad, my friend.
To you as well. Thanks for coming in. Mike Misico from ESPN Radio, James Cook from the Traverse City Record Eagle, and I am Bill Freilich with WTCM Radio. Thanks for joining us on the Briefing Room. We'll see you next week.